So in high school, we played this game senior year, and it was called Senior Assassin. And it's kind of a fun game where, you go and only seniors can participate, right? And you get water guns, and outside of school, off, school campus, you can go and, you're assigned like a target, pretty much. Someone else who's playing the game within your class, you have to go and get them with the water gun to advance to the next round. All the while, someone is hunting you at the same time. So it's very, spy games type deal. You figure out who your real friends are. And so one thing about Senior Assassin is my brother, he won. My dad, he was in the Marine Corps, very, very stealth, you know what I mean? Slips through the wilderness very, very quietly. And I think that was kind of passed down on to us. And so Trevor, he, when he won, he camped outside this girl's house from like 3 a.m, and he laid in the woods in a ghillie suit, and he got eaten by mosquitoes, but he still won the game. I think he won probably $500 or so. And so obviously that's a lot of pressure for me coming into this game. And the first few rounds, it was honestly kind of easy. Like, people they just don't think about it, whereas me, every waking moment, I didn't care about school anymore. I was concerned about winning this cash, winning Senior Assassin. And it was after I believe a baseball game or something like that. And one of my buddies, Chris Vaughn, he had me. He was trying to shoot me with the water gun. And I'm telling you what, I played a very tight game defensively and tactically. But that night, he really was the closest of anyone to getting me. He was laying in the bed of my truck. He had slipped up under the toolbox with his water gun, and he rode from the high school in the back of my truck all the way to my house, like a 7-minute drive. And thankfully, I told you, my dad, he loves this stuff. He loves being a part of the game. He would walk in the mornings before we would go to school. He would walk down the driveway, do a little patrol, same whenever we get home at night. And so I call him, I shut the garage door behind me, and I call him like, "Hey Dad, can you come do a sweep of the garage?" And he opens the door, and he starts yelling, hey, there's someone back here. Don't get out of the truck, And he knows Chris. We used to play baseball a long time, throughout the years we played a lot of ball together. And so he was going to wait it out. I was prepared to sleep in my truck in the garage. Legitimately, I would have slept there in my baseball stuff, gotten up and gone to school the next day. So my dad was like, "All right, if you're not going to leave, like, there's like Gatorades in the fridge, the garage fridge, and there's some like maybe a frozen pizza. I don't know if you want to eat that cold or something like that. Like, help yourself to anything in the fridge." Very hospitable, right? But here's the thing is, just earlier that day, one of my friends by the name of Cody, he let it slip that, "Hey, my target is Chris Vaughn." And I'm sitting in my truck for like 10 minutes, getting comfortable, getting ready to go to sleep. Light bulb, let me call Cody. And so I'm sitting there. I called Cody. I'm talking real quietly. I'm like, "Dude, I've literally got him trapped in my garage. He's like a caged possum right now. Dude, come blast him." So he pulls up like 10 minutes later, and Chris is like sitting in the garage, and he looks at me. He's like, "Why is the garage door opening?" And big old Cody Hanks walks around the corner with a super soaker and absolutely blasts him. It was really, man, it was a really, really fun time. I'll be honest. It was great. And there's several other stories that had to do with that game that I won't tell on the podcast because it makes a lot of people look not so great. But yeah, it was a fun time.
We should tell them on the podcast.
Well, yeah. One of them involved me. My dad delivered me as a package to somebody's house. I was literally in the box on their front doorstep. Unfortunately, their mom opened the box and not them. Freaked him out, to say the least.
Did she hide?
No, I was on the porch.
The box?
But it was
but
like
did she
it was
take
like
you inside.
No, it was like a Home Depot box, right? Like my dad wheeled me up there on a dolly, and it was just like kind of like in the driveway front walkway area. Super obvious. It was like the first round of the game. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to have to get, I'm going to have to up my strategy a little bit here. I would call Trevor, Trevor's up in Gainesville, or I guess then down in Gainesville. Like, hey man, I camped out at this girl's house, late. Some of these people, they don't care if they get to school like 2 hours late. I, had to go to classes. So I would get there like 45 minutes late, call Trevor. Hey man, can you call, such and such at the front office and just, tell him what's up. And so I would go to the front office and the lady at the front was like, oh, Brett, how was lunch? Or no, how was breakfast for your grandma's birthday? That's so sweet that y'all took her out. I'm like, I'm just a sweet guy, really. She was like, yeah, your dad called me and said that you were going to take your grandma out for breakfast. I just think that's great. I'm like, it's just the kind of person that I am. So yeah, a lot of shenanigans, a lot of fun. I ended up winning. And yeah, I got that cold hard cash, as they say.
That's pretty special.
Oh yeah.
I have Senior Assassin was a great game. Do you know if they still do it? I know there's a bit of drama a couple of years after I graduated. Because everybody's always complaining about things, You're always going to have someone complaining about things.
People, I think it's just this new generation, just kind of this snowflake generation. They call the cops for everything, If I was to hop into somebody's backyard when I was a senior and gently rap on the back door with a gun that, is a water gun, but they don't see it, they wouldn't call the cops on me. But people call the cops for anything nowadays. So I think they had to stop it because there was just dishonesty, greed, calling the cops, just boring stuff like that.
Yeah. And to be quite frank, the cops were called on me during Senior Assassin.
And I think your generation was really that kind of inflection point, if you will.
Yeah, us in our generations, man. I'll tell you, I was sitting out there subway with a gun on top of a car. All right. It was like a sniper who's bare. What do they call it? When you're on your belly? When you're on your stomach?
Prone.
Yeah, I'm proning. But I'm on top of the car.
Proning. Sounds like pruning.
I'm proning. And my guy is Aubrey Pollard. All right, so he works at the subway. Well, Aubrey walks out of the subway. No. He had a worker walk out for him. And so she wasn't even looking at top of the car. So she didn't see me. So Aubrey, she gives the go-ahead to Aubrey. Like, you can come dump the trash out now or something. Well, Aubrey walks out. I shoot him. And then he walks out, opens the door. I shoot him. Then he closes the door. All right. So he saw me shoot him, but he closed the door. 5 minutes later, he walks out and is still trying to play the game. He's still now he's shooting back at me. You 5 minutes ago, but because I had no choice, man. So then I stick around. I start calling the people. I hide underneath the dumpster. Again, shoot him in the leg. Runs away. Doesn't play. I mean, you want to talk about dishonesty. Man, oh man. I do feel bad for Joseph Poole because I called him up and I said, "Hey, you wanna play a game?" And Joseph comes. Well, Joseph's person was Hannah Powers. Hannah Powers had Joseph. So Aubrey calls up Hannah Powers, and Hannah Powers comes, shoots Joseph. I'm like, I'm sorry, man.
Classic setup.
But just that I got him twice. I sat behind a subway for a couple hours with my boy Noah Wingate. I mean, it was unbelievable. And then they're coming up with the cops. I'm sitting on top of my car with a gun. So the cops are rolling up. And like, sir, what are you doing? And I was like, what's this game? We shoot people with water guns. It's in high school. He's like, does this smell like weed to you? I was like, no.
Like, that's just my natural musk.
I think I saw the Little Caesars guy come out here and smoke some weed.
Underneath the dumpster.
Yeah. Oh
man,
but
it's crazy
that's
stuff.
Special.
It's and I won't spend too much time on another one, but there was a rainy day. We were supposed to have baseball. It got rained out, so I went over to some of my buddies' house. Justin Davis, Steed. It's just some great dudes. We're playing Madden. This group of girls comes to the front door because they want to get Steed. And one of them is my target, the one that I actually got in the box for at her house. She has no clue that I'm there because I've just been riding around with the boys all afternoon. She has no clue I'm there. She didn't see my truck because it wasn't there. So we literally go to this man's backyard, fill up a 5-gallon bucket, and we open up the door. They shoot me. None of them, I'm none of their targets, so it's of no consequence really. But as soon as I open up the door, her eyes just absolutely stunned, like no clue that I was there. 5-gallon bucket, just whoosh. She is, this isn't like a 2 or 3 pump water gun. 5 gallons, pretty hard to lie about. But she still tried to lie. She was like, "You didn't get me." And so I called up Travis. He was running the game. As soon as I did, I was like, "Dude, she's going to lie. She's going to say I didn't get her." I literally drenched her with a 5-gallon bucket. You have to believe me. But, when you live your life above reproach, people tend to believe you. And in the end, that's how you get that cash. So that's the parallel I want to draw.
There's the man who had his brother actually tell the front office that he took his grandma to breakfast.
Okay. That's not the worst thing in the world. I'm
going to live my life above reproach.
You got to do what you got to do, Well, that's all, that's fun and games from several years ago. But we know your life is not fun and games. Your life is very serious. There's no fun. There's no games. Solemn, serious are the words that come to mind. And I'd like you to kind of tell me how the last 7 days were with that in mind.
Yeah. So on Monday, I woke up in a spirit of solemnity. Stood in the mirror, I said, "You're a wretched sinner." Then I went to the gym. I abused my body. I tore the fibers in my muscles on purpose. Because I deserved it. Then I took a freezing cold shower because I the comfort and warmth on my body. You know what happens when you get in the freezing cold shower?
I can think of a few things.
You
Mm.
And how do you warm yourself up in the freezing cold shower? You don't, because you need to be cold. You need to feel what the Eskimos felt. Because you live in Florida. How else are you what other people feel? And that really set the tone for my week. You know, I wanted to be in a spirit of sadness. I wanted to be in a spirit of seriousness. And because of that, I needed to do those things to start. How is that so far?
Pretty
More
good.
sad?
Pretty good.
Need to be more
No,
serious?
I think you're spot on. I will say, I don't think we're allowed to say Eskimo anymore. We might just have to have Rodrigo take that out in post. I think
What's wrong?
Inuit is
TurboTax.
yeah. Inuit Inuit. What is it? Yeah, TurboTax. It's just a bunch of Eskimos that do your taxes for you.
What's wrong with an Eskimo?
I just don't think people, and I call them Eskimos. I don't, I'm fine with it personally. I'm just saying there might be some people out there. I know we've got some listeners in across the pond in the UK. They're a little stricter as far as, free speech and things like that. So
I haven't heard about this Eskimo news, but if it is offensive to say Eskimo, then I apologize. I can tell you that much.
I think Inuit it's just because it's more specific to the Alaskan natives,
Well, how do you know I was referring to Alaskan natives?
and I don't.
All right, so I think we're in the clear here. I go play pickleball. Why? Because I don't want to have fun. I want to be serious. What's the next day? Tuesday? Well, Tuesday is Life Group Bible Study. We talk about Paul on his journey to death. That doesn't seem fun. I think that's on brand. Now, what I will say is, all right, I'm having a real hard time sticking with the serious bit.
Dude, you don't have to. You don't have
Well,
to.
you asked me to, and I wanted to deliver, but it's difficult for me.
You live a very happy life, I'm going to be honest. So I'm pretty surprised you were able to make it as far as you did.
You ever feel like you're battling yourself?
Every day.
Yeah. This is that times 2,000. Inside of me, I'm trying to justify how pickleball is torture, how working out is bad, how my life is serious and sucks. But to be quite frank, that's inauthentic, ingenuine, and just a flat out lie. Aside from the Eskimos, I love Eskimos.
You're like, gosh, if I could just club like a baby seal to death, that would just put a cherry on top of this week.
And even the Bible, the Bible is serious. But Paul goes on his journey to death for us doesn't have to be sad. His martyr has allowed many people to live for a great length of time. And not because his martyr saves anybody, but because his martyr exemplifies the great power of the Lord. Because why in the world would you die for something you so strongly believe in if you didn't so strongly believe in it? You wouldn't. You would compromise at some point because you as more important than the thing you believe in or claim to believe in. But for Paul believes this so heavily that he says, God, my life is yours. You want to talk about challenge and encourage? That's that. Now, Tuesday. That was Tuesday. But the part that I also wanted to share was there's a group of women from Perry, Florida. You ever heard of Perry, Florida?
I've heard of it.
It's the home of the Great Pilgrim Festival. Well, they have a place called Johnsonville Donuts. Johnson's Donuts. Not to be confused with Johnsonville's sausage or Johnson & Johnson.
The family company.
The family. Well, they claim to be the best donuts around. And I had to share with them that Milton Quality Bakery were actually the best donuts around. And so we got to talking. Well, they bring the donuts in. And Johnson's Donuts are the same type of donut as the Milton Bakery, except the Milton Bakery is just better. I mean, it's quite simple as that. We also discussed whether hot donuts were good or not. Krispy Kremes?
What was the, I mean, who was the only one on that?
I was the only one on team. Non-hot Krispy Kremes are better.
Oh my gosh. Dude, are you serious?
Dude, the fresh hot sugar creams give me headaches.
Well, they also just slide down the gullet so fast. When it's hot like that, it literally, I mean, I think the phrase melts in your mouth is typically overused in a culinary sense, but it is, man, you just 1, 2, 3, round the rosy, and it's down. You know what I'm saying? And by then you grab another one, and your hands are a little hot, sticky. Ooh, you got to juggle it between two of your hands, but you get it down quick enough that it doesn't actually burn your fingers.
Yeah.
And then your fingers are all sticky.
Yeah.
And you go up to Bo and you touch him on the face and you grab his hands and you just get sticky all over him.
One of my favorite pastimes is to eat donuts with forks.
Some of the hottest takes this podcast has ever seen.
I'm telling you, donuts and forks are special. Especially, so here's what's weird is I'll warm up a donut in the microwave, but a fresh, hot Krispy Kreme donut right off the rack, it'll mess with my head. So if you put it in the microwave, you get a fork and you cut it up. You just have a cup of milk or a cup of coffee next to you. See, that is appetizing. Now, I would eat a hot, just saying, I prefer let those things rest for an hour or so, 30 minutes.
I just think the fork, okay, you're entitled to your opinion about the cold donut, but I think the fork really messes with, I mean, it's a fluffy donut, right?
Not Krispy Kreme.
I mean, it's not a cake donut. It's not dense. It's light and airy.
I just wouldn't consider it fluffy.
Okay. either way.
To be quite frank with you.
You hit the fork. When you do the fork cutting action, you're just squishing it down. So it's just like a little crepe at that point. You flattened it out.
You know what's really good is a Krispy Kreme chocolate glazed donut warmed up in the microwave with a fork. Well, you wouldn't warm the fork up. Be quite an idea.
Metal fork.
But those are just my thoughts, man. Let's get some Krispy Kremes. We should do a donut taste test. Also, our listeners are going to walk away and think I would never eat a hot donut. I could eat a donut at any point, at any time in the day, in the week, in my life. Donuts are one of the greatest items in the world, and I love them. Period. So that was some of our discussion on Tuesday. Wednesday, deeper life, Christianity and world religions. We talked about Mormonism. You know anything about Mormonism?
Only what I've gleaned from Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. I think it's, from what I understand, whoever their main dude is, maybe Joseph Smith, if that sounds right. Sounds like he took the Bible and the gospel and twisted it to suit his own preferences. He approached the Bible with a little bit of whiteout, maybe some scissors, things like that. But yeah, I mean, I think the overarching thing, at least what they portrayed on the show, was that you have to be perfect from like how you look, how you present yourself has to be perfect. I don't know if that's actually in their doctrine or if that's just something that comes out of like culturally out of that church, but that's just what I know about it. And it's not much.
Well, being perfect sounds. Why is that a bad thing?
Well, I think whenever you're talking about looks and, having your good deeds be, here's what I'll say. It seems like what they're doing is not for God or for anything like that. Not because of what they believe. It seems like it's more so, hey, this is how I'm presenting myself to the rest of the church, and what they think of me matters more than my standing with God. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's going to be a problem. They used to believe in polygamy, but when Utah outlawed polygamy, the head guy had a vision for polygamy. We got to get rid of it.
Tough break. Tough break there.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a lot different. They would believe that Jesus Christ is a different being than God, and that there's a universe of multiple gods. And then their heaven is strange. They have 3 different levels of heaven. Exactly what you said is the more perfect you are, the more good you do, the better heaven you go to. And then you are given universes in the afterlife. It's quite fascinating. We just kept saying that if you were going to create a religion and a cult, this is exactly how you would do it. From a profitable and reward-based standpoint. But praise God,
Yeah. No, I'm sure they made a lot of money. The founders, I'm sure the head of the temple, I'm sure they make plenty of money. I think there's a lot of wealthy folks in the Mormon Church. I'm personally like, if I was going to do a cult, I feel like Branch Davidian, David Koresh would probably be a little more my vibe. But I mean, if you're going to do a cult, I guess Mormonism is fine.
Take those words to heart.
Put that on a T-shirt.
If you're gonna do a cult, Mormonism is fine, I guess. A reminder: there's nothing we can do to earn our salvation. We believe that as Christians, that salvation was a gift that was given to us through Jesus Christ for our sins. Those sins before him and those sins after him. So that was a good first week. We have part 2 of Mormonism this week, I believe. So for Sunday, which was good, it was fun. Thursday rolls around, I go play some tennis in the morning. Then I play some pickleball in the evening. That was good. Friday rolls around, play some pickleball. Then I go to Chewy with Mando, the Big Red Machine, and get some creamy jalapeno bean.
I've heard this story before.
Yeah. It's quite a consistent. It's a great rhythm. You got to do the small tortilla soup, man. And then I go watch a tennis match for a young Townsend Tab who won one of his matches. He won a mixed doubles match.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then their team won the whole thing. Then I go to the Florida baseball game, which I think they got smoked pretty bad by the Gamecocks. Saturday rolls around. Saturday, I attend a birthday party for one of our TikTok followers. His son. His name is Jeremy Large, the TikTok follower. He's following, but I think he sees them. His son turned 1 year old. I got to see some of my great friends, Jesse Kabawi and Mary Beth Kabawi. They live in Melbourne here's their address.
I think.
Did you get that?
Yeah. Yeah. I just wanted to make sure you got the right street number. But yeah, you got it.
Good deal. Oh, that was splendid. Sunday rolls around, we got church, of course. We talk about what it takes to win in the wilderness. And everything's pointing back to Jesus, right? If you're in the wilderness, metaphorically, if you're going through tests and trials and tribulations, if you're at a hard point in your life, where's your focus set? Is your focus set on getting out of the wilderness as fast as possible? Because, quite frank with you, if that's the case, you're going to compromise on your beliefs to achieve the exodus. But if your goal is to focus on the glory of Christ Jesus, well, you can quite some time, but you are fulfilled in the wilderness. Period. I return home. I go work out. Then I go on a walk. Arts festival at Santa Fe College. That was quite interesting. There was a lot of spring arts going on. It was jam-packed. I did not purchase anything. Then I return home once more, and I will turn on the Masters. And it was just phenomenal. What a great day. Now I'm spending time with my brother-in-law. A podcast called the Quite Frankly Podcast. And when you look at my week, past 7 days, we kind of start on a sad note. Said woke up, looked in the mirror, said, "You suck." Well, now I'm looking into, and I'm saying, this was the most incredible week in the history of all weeks. And one might say I am hyperbolizing. And I would just disagree with you. A great week is what you choose to be a great week. You have no idea what my measure of success is. You have no idea what my measure of greatness is. So how dare you say it couldn't be the best week of your life? I told you every week is the best week of my life because I have a different standard of greatness than what you may be thinking I have. Those are just my thoughts. But you know what would make my week even better? Be knowing about your week.
Well, you really did a pivot there, and I appreciate, sounded like you started on kind of a rough note, and seems like you really redeemed your week. And you're coming out of it saying that it's one of the best, not one of the best, but the best that you've ever had. Pretty special. Pretty special.
Yeah. And I'll claim it. I'll say every week is the best week I've ever had. Because I don't think there's a single week in our lives something new.
I dig it. I agree. Well, hopefully we're all learning and not just, kind of mindlessly coasting through life. But I think you got to be active with it, with your brain. You got to be seeking to learn things about yourself as you go along the way,
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll say, we talked about last week, how old Bo Burton was a new faithful listener. Well, who do I see Monday? Bo Burton. We play pickleball together, and we just absolutely tear up the courts. I mean, people were staring at Burton and saying, "I want no part of that court." So I needed to shout him out because he's just a special, special man.
Well, I'm terrible at pickleball, so I wouldn't have tried you either, but I believe you. He sounds like the male equivalent of a Serena, on the pickleball courts. So,
yeah.
I'll say my week was pretty interesting. Monday was pretty typical. Tuesday, I had a golf tournament that I played in. It was me and 3 other guys from work, and the tournament was for CEF, which is Child Evangelism Fellowship. And what they do is they go into public schools and they do after school programs and things like that where they teach the gospel to kids. And so they were doing the tournament to raise money. And I'll tell you what, it was a good time. There was a couple of the guys on our team that weren't the best golfers, but we all just had a blast. We were hanging out. There was a little music. I'll tell you what, whenever I'm relaxed like that, like just step up there and hit the ball, I was striking the ball better than I have in a long time. And I think that showed me, hey, I'm in my head too much. Like I'm just out here. No one really cares about the score. It's a scramble, but I'm not, if I hit a bad shot, I'm not just absolutely demolishing myself on the inside, as I go up to the ball to hit it again. So it was a great time. I'm trying to think of anything wild that happened. There was one par 3 over water. I went first. I don't like going first. But I topped it. It trickled down into the water, like off the front of the tee box, barely, just very sad.
Did you have
Next
to take your
3
pants
people.
off next shot?
No, I didn't do that. Next 3 people, topped. The next one, he hits it up, but he just hits it way short. And so it's going, and it's like our only shot of this tee shot not going in the water. We're like, go. I'm like, skip. Like halfway to the green, just right into the water, kerplunk. So we didn't even turn in a scorecard at the end of the day, honestly, because we got through 7 holes. And I was like, hey, y'all are keeping score, right? And I knew where we were mentally. And they were like, no, y'all are, I thought you were keeping score. So at that point, I was like, okay, this is, it wasn't meant to be. So I think we finished at 1 over, which for a scramble is pretty wretched. But we all had a good time, I'm like, how do you not go low when you're in a scramble? But we didn't. So I think we had 3 or 4 birdies on the day, which is really, really horrendous. So, but it was a good time. Got to see some guys from church played in the tournament as well. So they were kind of our enemies for the day, I guess, if you will. So, but we had slim chickens. What else? They had all, it's a festivities. They've got all the snacks. They've got everything else. So it was a good time. Rest of the week, kind of trucking on. Wednesday, Thursday are pretty typical. Friday, I had to go up to Moffitt, which is in Tampa. It's like a cancer research center. Had some scheduling conflicts with the field guys out there, so I was called to go, hey, just go watch these guys work. Like, they're used to working in the hospital. They know exactly what they're doing, but we have to have someone present while they're working. So I was the babysitter, so to speak, for that day. Drive all the way up to Tampa. It's like an hour 15 up there. Call the plumber. Yo, what's up? Where y'all at? He's like, oh, our material, it's like a mixing valve. Our material is not going to get here till lunch. Which on the inside, I'm like, dude, if your material's not getting here till lunch on a Friday, you're not working, okay? You're not going to show up. He's like, yeah, we'll get in there. We're going to get a couple hours worth of work done. And it's a small job, a couple hours would really go a long ways, because I think it was like a total of 3 days installation, if that. 1:30 rolls around, call him again. He's like, yeah, man, I'm sorry. We're not gonna be there. So drove up to Tampa for nothing, but I got some work done while I was up there. Got to listen to, I've been getting into this podcast that I listened to some in college, but you kind of fall off after a few years. It's called Exploring My Strange Bible. It's with Tim Mackey. And he does a lot of stuff with like the Bible Project now. I think he created the Bible Project. But he's a funny dude. I mean, he's kind of got this like high pitched voice. It's this church out of Portland, but he's just very, I don't know, theologically, the dude is, I mean, he just kind of like nerds out on like the historical background of it, like the language, the Hebrew translations and all that other stuff. So on longer car rides, that's kind of a fun one to listen to. So yeah, that was Friday, and it was a doozy. I got home early though. Like I dipped at like 1:30, got home at like 3, worked a little bit more, but overall, if you're getting home at 3 on a Friday, like I'm feeling pretty good about it. So, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask what was something you learned from exploring my strange Bible.
So let's see here. The topic was Daniel, the book of Daniel. Obviously they're going through, he's interpreting all these wild dreams. And so you kind of see some similarities in like the dreams, the visions that God gives him. It's like these beasts with the horns, and, Israel is currently under Babylon's rule, under, they're captive under them. And so obviously, in their time, they're thinking, hey, this beast is Babylon, like that's oppressing the people of God, essentially. And then he goes through and pulls up a New Testament verse where Jesus is talking to the priests and the religious elites. And you wouldn't know it if you didn't know Hebrew, I guess, but he essentially makes a callback to Daniel about the beast that everyone, for years, everyone thought it was, hey, Babylon. And even in Jesus's time, they would have thought it was Rome, right? That was kind of over them and oppressing them. But he's going through and he's calling the religious elite, hey, you are the beast with the 10 horns that's oppressing God's will, essentially. So it was kind of crazy. And also, he goes back to Genesis about how he's called the Son of Man. Daniel calls it the Son of Man. And he kind of draws the parallels like, look, like Adam was the original Son of Man, obviously screwed it up. But look, God makes his promise that, hey, I'm going to send another that's coming from me, and he's going to make everything right. And so it's just so cool. Like through Daniel's visions, he's like, look, sometime in the future, God's going to send somebody, and, they're going to slay the beast. Essentially, they're going to make it right. So obviously that's Jesus, but it's just wild. It's all tied together from Genesis to Daniel to the New Testament. It's a little crazy,
That's pretty awesome.
And that was probably a really, the listeners are probably like so confused. I'm just totally botching this recount here, but that's what it was.
Hey man, it sounded good. I enjoyed it. I love seeing Old Testament prophecies be fulfilled in the New Testament. And even in the Old Testament,
Yeah. And it's cool how, like Jesus uses, obviously, like, the, like the religious elites, like they would have known the Torah, essentially, like they would have had it memorized pretty much. So like you see several times, like Jesus goes through, like even whenever he's up on the cross, whenever he says, my God, why have you forsaken me? He's like calling back to Psalm 22. And you're essentially looking at, if you read through Psalm 22 and you're like standing at the foot of the cross as Jesus is being crucified, you're literally like, that would have been playing through everyone's head, and it goes through and it's like word for word exactly what's happening to Jesus. So it's pretty wild how he does it, but also, I mean, he's God, right? So it's not really surprising that he can do that either.
yeah. His plans are sometimes incomprehensible to the human mind because, to be quite frank, we are not omniscient, potent, nor omnipresent.
To
So
say the least.
you need to, yeah, that's quite frankly, that's literally the least we could say. But it's just amazing how it works. Even if it doesn't feel good for us, you know, it makes us more like him, which is ultimately what we should be desiring. Because ultimately, that's what glorifies God. And that's why we're here. As believers in Christ, followers of the way. That's the one purpose, is to bring God glory. And so be encouraged. You know, what was the most glorious thing Jesus could have done? Quite literally be killed for us. Now, being killed doesn't seem glorious. How is that glorious? Well, our definition of glory is just wrong. You know, we think, the human mind thinks so individualistically, like how am I going to be in a position of achievement and success? And we need to redefine success to be the glory of the Lord. And then that's what becomes good. And that's what becomes our standard of how we see Jesus dying on a cross, being murdered as an innocent lamb, as an innocent man, as glory. Because without that, it makes no sense whatsoever.
I agree.
I'll have to check out more Exploring My Strange Bible. You know, why does it, what does that mean? Exploring My Strange Bible. Why is the Bible strange?
I think it's strange to us because I don't think we can comprehend the amount of love that God has for us. And I don't think we can comprehend the measures that he goes to and through to show us that love. You know what I mean? I think that's one of the, I'm sure he calls it My Strange Bible because, it's like, oh, this dude thinks the Bible is strange. But when you think about it, like from a human standpoint, a lot of strange stuff happens in it. And a lot of it's due to God's love for us.
Oh, yeah. Pigs running. That's weird. That's strange. So, yeah, that makes sense. Sorry, we took a sidebar. You're on Saturday, I think.
I'm on Saturday. Yeah. Saturday we had a birthday party for some of our friends. Well, some of our friends' kids, but I would consider them our friends too, I guess. It was a joint birthday party, a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old, and they got a cow, like a baby cow, to come and hang out at the party for like an hour in the backyard. It was nuts, dude. I've never seen anything like it. But it was, the invitation was cow print, and there's some pun about cows and cattle, whatever. And so I text Jacob, old Jacob Sparks, and Todd Chastain, and I say, y'all, we got to do farmer, cowboy, something here. We got to do something with this theme. And if you remember at Stetson's birthday party, Jacob, he went all out. He had the golf shoes, the golf pants. He had a dang golf glove in his back pocket. I was like, this dude goes all out. So I said, look, we got to do some Western wear for this party. And there was no dress code. It's a hot Saturday. Everyone's in shorts. We pull up just Wranglers. I went with the dang Canadian tuxedo. I went dark Wrangler denim, pearl snap shirt on top, light wash jeans on the bottom, gator skin boots, and a dang 1982 Rodeo World Finals belt buckle. It was an incredible fit. Jacob had I think it was just like a long sleeve shirt with a bunch of deer, like bucks, all over it. And then he had the belt buckle, jeans, boots, and a cowboy hat as well. So we were really the only two. I lie. There was three of us that were dressed in Western attire. Stetson had some like khaki work pants, some American flag boots, and a dang blue Wrangler pearl snap shirt. It was so good, dude. I didn't have a belt buckle for him. I felt kind of bad, but it was an amazing fit. So the three of us showed up. People are like, I read the invite, but I didn't know there was like a theme. Like I didn't know we were supposed to dress up for this. And we were like, yeah, it was on the back. Did you read the back of the did you read the back of the invite? It's like weird. Like we're the only two that actually read the invite that said dress like a cowboy, you know?
Mm.
So, and then the host of the party, she's like, oh, y'all dressed up, you know? She kind of gave it all away. I was like, look, we told everybody that you wanted it like this, you know? Just go with it. Just go with it. So, but it was a really fun time. Stetson got to pet the cow. I wanted to throw him up on there and see how long he lasted, but the lady wouldn't let me do that. She said that was a liability. So, so that was Saturday. It was good. I mean, it was a short party. Little kids' parties are short, but came back home, watched the Masters, and then Sunday this morning we got up. We went to church. We're going through Genesis in our Sunday school group, which if you've never read Genesis, if you grew up in church, you're like, oh, Genesis. Yeah, I've read that 100 times. But if you look at it from like, how do I say this? If Genesis is like the binoculars and you're looking up towards the New Testament, Jesus is all over Genesis. I'll say that. So go read it. It's great. Draw some parallels there. And then, yeah, I came home. We went and got lunch with some friends and then came home and watched the Masters. Scotty Scheffler is, the beard is out. And I'll say this. I think bearded Scotty is like hoodie mellow. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Or Jeremy Lin.
Well, you know hoodie mellow, right? Like
I know Hoodie Mello. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know hoodie mellow. And for the people that don't know, Carmelo Anthony, I think he's retired. Maybe I haven't heard anything from him, but he's a basketball player. Several years ago, he was kind of washed up, and then he started wearing a hoodie like before all the games, and he just started balling out like crazy. So, hoodie mellow, I think the hoodie gave him the superpowers. And I mean, Scotty's a great golfer, but he's had that beard the past few weeks, and he's won, 3 times in the past 6 weeks? Pretty nuts.
Yeah. He's incredible.
But yeah, it's that was really my week, but pretty special ending there with Scotty. I feel like every time I watch him play, I'm like, this dude is. I think Stetson's generation is going to look back and almost like Tiger. I know that's a big, Tiger won a bunch more than Scotty has, but he's also a lot older, right? So I think Stetson's generation is going to look back and say, wow, Scotty was Tiger.
Yeah. I was thinking that as he won. Scotty is as generational as Tiger. There's no one on his level. Just week in and week out. You have some contenders that are every now and then, that do well, but he's consistent, placing top tens.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
But
No, I mean, obviously guys like Rom, you could go down the list of anybody that could just pop off on one random weekend and, win a major. But I feel like week in and week out, like you said, if I had to put money on anybody to win a random tournament, like I would put it on Scotty Scheffler. Like I think anybody would.
yeah, he's incredible. Well, that sounds like a lovely week, and we have gone overtime, I think. So tell me,
We're in overtime.
we're in overtime, man. What's your song of the week? What have you been listening to?
Well, I'm going to go ahead and take you up on that, Charity Gale. One per album there. She's got the new album out. Obviously, you added a song last week. I'm going to go with the song Sweetest Name I Know. It's an absolute banger. But everything by her is, right? So that kind of goes without saying.
Yeah. You told me to listen to that yesterday. I listened to it in the gym, and that was special. I'm going to go with Postman by Palmer. All right, this is another case of I don't really know what the words say, but the sound is so vibey. So, if the words are bad, they're not explicit bad. If the words just don't make sense, just listen for the sound. That's what I'm saying.
Is this a new song?
I think so.
Okay. Because there was a Vine, back when Vine was a thing. And there's like this little kid, he's on the sidewalk. And he's like, something, something, Mr. Postman. And then the camera turns to this like 95-year-old dude with no teeth. And he goes, yeah.
That's not the song.
I'm assuming it's not the same song. Oh man, that's great. Well, we'll throw them on the collection, and we'll have the audience decide whether they like it or not.
Yeah. Well, any final thoughts for our listeners?
I don't think so. I would say go out and just listen to an episode of that. Exploring my strange Bible. I think it's worth listening for anybody out there. It's I find it incredibly intriguing, more so than like your typical sermon podcast.
That's a good word. So, as you know, the NCAA championship happened between Purdue and University of Connecticut. All right, I was sitting in BJ's restaurant and brew house with our beloved Zach Allen, who has yet to become on this podcast, but will one day. Well, here, if you remember, about 5 weeks ago, maybe 6, we put out a bracket for our listeners to fill out. And we talked about the reward, a couples massage. Well, it is with great honor, love, and generous love that I share the news that Lucas High has won the deep body tissue massage. the body deep tissue massage. Our special ingredient, bacon grease. All right. This massage will be filmed. It will be a podcast for our subscriber-only content subscribers. And we are excited to do this. It's going to be unlike anything you've ever seen. I can tell you that much. I think there is no way that this has been done before. appropriately.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm gonna be honest, dude. I made eggs yesterday, and I've got a thick mason jar full of bacon grease, and I am very excited about this.
So, so if you know Lucas High, you ought to talk to him about it because he's just as excited as we are. But be on the lookout for that for our subscribers. That's only $2.99 a month, and you can at flobo.com. FLEAUBO.com. Well, and with that, that's the podcast for this week. And this has just been an absolutely gift of a time. Listeners, I know I got a little intense on you about measuring success. And I want you to know that that doesn't affect, that actually, it does affect, actually, the it drives me to love you more deeply and more generously. And that's why we're going to see you in 7 days.